don't want to poop or have botulism and die.
Hey, it's Sue.
And Megan in the restricted section.
And today we're doing a review of The Color Purple.
The Color Purple by Alice Walker.
And we're going to drink Double Chocolate Stout from Young's Brewing.
Yes.
I haven't had this in a long time, but I used to drink it all the time because at the time I thought it was delicious. We'll see if I still feel the same.
I have never had this, so we'll see what happens. What are you doing in there?
It's fucked up on the bottom, so I hope it doesn't have botulism. Can beer have botulism?
I don't know. We'll find out if we end up shitting our brains out later. That's what you do when you have botulism, right?
I don't know.
Lots of pooping?
I thought you just died.
Oh, I don't want to do that either.
Maybe you do just poop. Have double chocolates. This is one of those that has like one of those balls inside.
Oh, the nitro.
It says, for best results, serve cool but not ice cold. Carefully open can and pour contents into glass. Wait and watch the head settle on a perfect glass of Young's Double Chocolate Stout. I think this is from England.
I think it is.
I think that's settled enough. Here it
Fairly
is.
settled.
Rich.
Nice
and
and dark.
luxurious. I still like it.
That's pretty good.
Still like it.
Mm-hmm.
It is nice and chocolatey.
That's pretty good, but it's not like too sweet because that's I don't like super sweet beer.
No.
That's pretty good.
That's good though.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Color Purple is a classic.
It is.
I'm sure you all have heard of it. I actually, going into this, I definitely heard of it, but I didn't really know what the story was about.
Mm-hmm.
So, it was a surprise for me.
I had watched the movie, but I had never read the book.
Yeah. That being said, this will not be a spoiler-free review. Just FYI.
Yeah, this will be full of spoilers.
So this is about two sisters, and they kind of get separated from each other. One of them remains in the United States and is married off to a man that she doesn't love and who
is horrible to her.
Yeah, who is quite abusive and horrible. And the other one ends up becoming a missionary and traveling to Africa. They write letters back and forth, but they're not actually corresponding.
Yeah, they don't receive each other's letters because
Seeley
doesn't receive any of the letters from her sister Nettie because they're intercepted by her husband, by Seeley's husband.
Right.
And he keeps them and does not give them to her.
Yeah, and this is, I mentioned that it's set in,
I think like 30s or 40s.
Yeah, like the 1930s or 40s.
We both really love this book.
Yeah.
There was a lot of stuff in there to kind of unpack, I guess.
But there was like an interesting, parallel between Nettie's experience in Africa and Seeley's experience in the U.S. Because we were kind of talking about how neither of them really seemed to fit in. Because Nettie, going there, she's an outsider, obviously.
Right.
Like, she's from the U.S., even though like, her ancestors are from Africa. It seems like a totally different place. And I think they mention how the native Africans don't really seem like sympathetic to the fact that
they were taken, their ancestors were taken from that country. Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah. And so, Seeley, in the same way, like, the white people around her are certainly not sympathetic to that either.
Right.
And she doesn't really fit in either because, I think partly because she's a lesbian. Like, she's not.
Yeah,
she's not attracted to men.
Right.
And so, she's expected to marry and is
given to this man by the man that she knows is her father. Which we didn't talk about that. That's a whole other different thing.
The beginning of this book, starts out with...
Well, even when she finds out that he's not her father.
Yeah.
That's real fucked up.
Seeley's got
She's got some things.
Fucked up past.
Got some things. But yeah, she's given to this man by her father because this man actually wanted her sister. Seeley was given to this man by her father, or who she knew as her father, and just kind of expected. Her father had been raping her for years at this point.
I think so. She had birthed two children.
Two children by
this
the
man
dude that she thought was her dad.
She knew was her father.
And then was just kind of given to this man, kind of like she was nothing, like she was just a breeding stock.
Yeah, basically.
which is not a way for anyone to be treated, but I can't imagine, like, not even being remotely attracted to men and then being expected to perform with them.
Yeah, and Seeley at the beginning is very complacent. Like, she's just like,
this is how it is. This is my life.
Yeah. But then she meets Shug, who is her husband's mistress, sort of.
Yeah.
I think they had been like actually in love with each other in the past, like, and her husband was still in love with Shug.
Madly in love with Shug.
But Shug, I think, was
kind of over him.
Yeah, she was kind of over him. But Shug kind of like opens this whole new world for Seeley because Shug, they become very close friends first.
Yeah.
And Shug is very like outspoken and kind of just like, fuck you, and you're, you know, I do what I want.
I'm gonna do what I want to do.
Which is basically the polar opposite of Seeley. And then they develop a romantic relationship with each other.
They do.
And they're in love with the...
Seeley kind of actually enjoys sex for the first time when she has sex with Shug. She realizes that, like, things in her body kind of come awake that never did when she was, you know, sleeping with men and men that she didn't love or that, you know...
Right. Shug is kind of, opens her eyes to that too, because Seeley doesn't even know that sex could be enjoyable.
Right.
Because she kind of explores it on her own.
On her own.
At first.
Thinking about Shug.
Right. And then she and Shug eventually
have sex, and she actually does enjoy it. But yeah, it's kind of like a sexual awakening for her when she realizes that she can experience pleasure that way.
Yeah. And, you know, something I thought was really interesting was that this wasn't... really thought, like, her and Shug having a relationship was, like, not a big deal. Like, nobody cared.
Yeah, nobody really said anything. They didn't care. Seeley and Shug end up living together, and nobody really says anything about
nobody
it.
Nobody cares. At some point at the end of the book, she and her husband actually, they both grow and change throughout the course of this book, and they're actually friends by the end. And her husband at one point asks her, like, is it just me, or
are you not attracted to any men?
Any men. And she's like, yeah, I'm not into
men.
Yeah, but that was an interesting relationship too, that because he, like we said, he's like really abusive at the beginning, but I feel like that was like, I think he was doing what he thought he was supposed to do.
Yeah, because that was very much the norm in this story. Like, it was just expected that you would beat your wife, and it was just kind of expected that your wife was just there to basically give you children and keep your house.
Right.
That, you know.
Yeah, so... But by the end, after, you know, Shug has left him, Seeley has left him, he kind of learns that you can't treat people. You can't treat people that way. And he actually becomes, like, by the end, he's alright. He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
And he and Seeley become friends, and they, like, hang out all the time and
hang out on the porch and
sew
talk
together.
Yeah. So that's pretty cool. I think, you know, it speaks to how much Albert has changed, that's his name, and then also it speaks to who Seeley is as a person, because I think that, you know, this girl who started out very complacent and very accepting with, you know, this is just how my life is, kind of grew and changed, and then also was able to forgive him at the same time, because she does become fairly, you know, feminist and willing to stand up for herself, but then at the same time she's able to forgive this man who, but I think a lot of that's because he changed.
Yeah.
Who he was. Because I think that if he hadn't, I don't think she would have had that relationship with him. But
yeah, and I think that Seeley by the end, like I've said before, she was kind of, she's not a, like, in-your-face person like Shug is. I think by the end she's, like, subtly saying fuck you to everyone, because she starts designing pants for... A lot of them for women, for men too, but like women wearing pants was like, women
don't wear pants. Why are you wearing pants?
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool that she, you know, she's like, I'll wear pants if I want to, and I'll design pants for all my female friends. Yeah,
I thought that was really cool, and just to see her go from, like, because at one point in the book she tells her stepson Harpo to beat his wife.
Yeah,
at one point she says, you gotta beat her, and then she has to make peace with his wife Sofia for that at some point, because Sofia knows that Seeley told him to beat her.
Yeah.
And so at some point...
Sofia's very headstrong.
Oh, yeah.
So she did not take well to the beating.
No, she did not. She beat
so that was bad advice.
Yeah. So at some point, Seeley had to kind of reconcile with her. But I think at the time that she said that, Seeley didn't know that that was wrong to do.
Yeah.
I know that she knew she didn't like it, but I don't think she knew that it was wrong.
Because that's all she had experienced in her life was abuse from men.
Right, just getting beat and raped. And at one point, I think it was Shug who opened her eyes to the fact that even getting beat was wrong, because it was Shug who was kind of shocked to find out that Albert was beating Seeley.
Yeah.
And so Shug,
Albert was someone that Shug had loved.
Yeah, and wouldn't have thought that about because he didn't treat her that way.
Yeah.
And so she kind of took up for Seeley in that regard, and I think he only beat her once or twice after Shug said, don't. But
only once or twice. We were talking about this earlier, but we thought that Seeley and Nettie kind of came to similar conclusions about God, because in the beginning, Seeley, it's written almost like a journal, and Seeley addresses everything, dear God. But then after everything she goes through and after reading all of Nettie's letters, when she finally gets Nettie's letters, she starts writing to Nettie instead of God.
And I think at one point, was it the last letter she wrote? It was like, dear
God, dear stars, dear trees, dear sky, dear peoples, dear everything, dear God.
I think that describes a lot of how Seeley comes to think of God. And Nettie, too, because Nettie says in one of her last letters to Seeley, she said, God is different to us now, after all these years in Africa, more spirit than ever before and more internal. Most people think he has to look like something or someone, a roof leaf or Christ, but we don't. And not being tied to what God looks like frees us. So I think that both Nettie and Seeley come to the conclusion that perhaps God is bigger than what they had thought.
Yeah, and that's kind of where the title of the book comes from too, is that Shug tells her, I remember she's telling her something about how you can't go through life just missing everything. You have to stop and appreciate things like the color purple.
Right, like if you can't have like an experience by noticing the color purple, then you've missed out.
And I think that's what God is to Shug, sort of, and that's what Seeley learns from her, is that God is kind of like...
Not really an omnipotent being, but really like everything. Like nature, people, everything.
Right.
And I think that that's what Nettie comes to realize too, because the tribal community that she's living in, they believe that God, they worship like a leaf.
Yeah, and their God is destroyed by these rubber factories.
Yeah, they're coming through and like just demolishing everything. And
so they destroy all of this leaf that they worship. And so I think Nettie sees that and thinks, well, that can't be God.
Right, surely that can't be God. That can't be all there is if it can be so easily destroyed.
Right.
And so I think that they both kind of come to the same conclusion about their, spirituality, is that perhaps it's not so easily defined as God.
Right.
So, because I kind of see them becoming more, not necessarily Christian toward the end. Like, I feel like they kind of abandon their Christianity and kind of accept that
and
maybe...
they're still...
Spiritual.
They still have like a spirituality, but they don't really believe in like the Christian God anymore, I don't think.
No, that's kind of how I read it too. It was just that it was more of a...
But also, Nettie rejects the African religion as well, so...
Yeah, so maybe it's just like religion in general that they're both like opposed to. Which, Same.
It's really good. If you haven't read it yet, I would definitely suggest it.
So good.
Yeah, and it's the writing is like pretty simplistic and straightforward.
But it really it doesn't make it any less impactful. If anything, I think it makes it more impactful because you really feel like you are immersed in Seeley's thoughts. Yeah. And Nettie's thoughts.
Seeing the difference between their letters too, because Seeley doesn't really receive much education, even though she is very smart.
She's smart, yeah, definitely.
But yeah, her her grammar is not very good, and then you see Nettie's letters later on, and she has like impeccable grammar because she had the opportunity, because she wasn't given to some man
to receive schooling and education, so she was able to write in a more, educated fashion.
Yeah. I have 5 out of 5 stars.
Same. Really? 5 out of 5 stars. So good.
Yeah. And I like this beer.
Yeah, this beer is good. I
haven't had a dark beer in a long time. I don't drink them in the winter or in the summer very much.
I drink them all year round, but like here lately, I don't know. It's just been like so humid and
so
sticky.
Hot. It was like 100 degrees out today.
Ah,
it's rough.
It's real rough. I've been wanting like crisp, refreshing beer.
Yeah. But this is pretty tasty. The Young's Double Chocolate Stout. So, there will be some links below where you can find us other places on the internet.
And if you're not subscribed to the restricted section, you should do it.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.